Hey everyone, it's Pat with Seattle Coffee here, and I'm here with Alex Sciarrotta from Narrative Coffee in Everett, Washington, and we're here to chat a little bit about being a barista, working in coffee, and just kind of the on-the-ground process of the coffee industry. So how's it going, Alex?
Pretty good, man. Yeah, how are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm excited to be here. It's a really cool cafe here. I'm sure hopefully you'll see a little bit of it as we go through the interview. But to get right into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who might not know who you are?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a husband and father. I got a couple little kids. I've been in coffee for about a half a decade now. All of it has been here. So started in coffee here. Love to read. I think I like learning a lot.
Cool.
It is something that I get really excited about in general. Anything that like piques my interest. And I love being outside.
Cool.
So.
Well, what can you tell us about Narrative and kind of the purpose and culture of the cafes?
Yeah, for sure. So we're a multi-roaster cafe, and we have a pretty aggressive coffee program. So we'll have somewhere between 15 and 20 different single origin coffees on at any given time. Everything that we serve is single origin. We have very occasionally served a blend and like on a special occasion, but everything is really focused on single origin as far as our coffee program is concerned. We manage that by being able to actually keep any sort of consistency and be able to serve coffees well and highlight them well.
Sure.
We choose 2 for espresso and 2 for filter or pour over every day. And our batch coffee will rotate throughout the day. But yeah, our coffee program is really unique. We cup every 2 months. We don't really solicit or ask people to send us coffees. We just people have been really kind to us and have managed to have somewhat of a following around the world. We'll get coffees sent in to us. They have to be somewhere between 3 and 5 different single origin coffees. And we cup at a particular time that's posted on our website every 2 months. We go through in one evening and cup somewhere on average between 60 and 100 coffees in an evening.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of coffees to cup in an evening. It definitely takes a while to
for sure.
Not have extreme palate fatigue after like 12 cups.
Yeah, I bet.
And you kind of get used to it after you've been doing it for years, but it takes a while, and that'll be somewhere between 20 and 30 different roasters, maybe slightly over 30 depending on how many people end up sending in. But that's a pretty average cupping anything under 60 would be a really light cupping for us, actually.
So in your experience, how have you seen, both the cafe itself and then kind of the larger industry change over your time in it? You said about half a decade.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I guess a lot of that time has been in the pandemic, but still I'm interested to hear how you've seen it change, maybe with that as part of the equation.
Over the years, the biggest shift that I have seen, which was really in vogue when I started, was, as far as culture is concerned, is the idea of making sure that hospitality is really forefront.
Sure.
Instead of being kind of an exclusionist, like we know something and you don't kind of world.
Yeah, totally.
And being way more welcoming, way more guest forward, and just welcoming everybody regardless of what they like to drink, whether they're the right drinks or not.
Right.
Into your cafe, and that's something we try really hard to do here.
Sure.
And obviously, I mean, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen just the general quality and availability of high quality coffees advance so highly.
Yeah,
and even
definitely.
in just my time here, we've always had a really stellar coffee program, but the access to just extremely high quality coffees at often a more and more affordable rate is really cool. So I'm not having to necessarily get a crazy competition small lot for something to be something that 5 years ago would have the taste profile and what that coffee would have been a crazy competition lot. And now that things are exceeding expectations year over year, producers are just absolutely killing it. We are getting access, and the general public are getting access to more and more of those coffees at a slightly more affordable rate because it's a larger portion of the farmer's crop. They're still being paid very well for them, but it's not the best that they have now is so far and away different than 5-10 years ago comparatively. And then the bulk of their crop is also improving in quality, which is really a really neat thing to get to experience.
So how do you feel that the community, you mentioned the hospitality aspect, how do you feel that the community has helped to shape narrative and kind of drive the direction of the cafe over here?
The coffee community, or like Everett specifically?
I would say maybe a little bit of both. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that distinction is interesting.
Yeah.
So I would definitely be curious as to how both of them have impacted.
Yeah, totally. So as far as the general coffee community, I think that the push towards hospitality forward mindset in the last decade or so, and learning from the mistakes of our past, because we kind of dug our own grave on a lot of different things as an industry. We tended to kind of incubate things that we're now not so proud of, which often such is life.
Of course.
And we have continued to move in a direction that is very welcoming, very guest forward, and that has very much shaped our mindset, because that, to my mind, is if we're in service and we're serving people food and beverage, so on and so forth, we're working with the general public every day, that has got to be at the forefront.
Totally.
Is taking hospitality really seriously, and what the root of the word means is like effectively taking strangers and making them friends.
Yeah.
And that's super important to what we do. It's also super important to the sustainability of our business. When you treat people well, they want to come back, and we need people to keep coming back, or we don't have jobs.
Right.
As far as Everett specifically is concerned, Everett is one of those weird little convergence zones in Washington where you get a lot of people on all sides of like political spectrums, thought spectrums, all this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of a weird place to interact with everybody, because they're more localized, where more people, like let's say in a particular neighborhood in Seattle, are going to be much more of the same mindset, almost entirely, than you're going to get in a place like Everett. Sure. Our general values are hospitality is paramount, quality offered humbly, make room for everyone, and create community. And so those four things, all of them trickle down into making sure that we're serving our community well, because you're not doing hospitality well if you're not taking seriously the community that you are actually in. Right.
Well, you've touched on a lot of points I think that someone could extrapolate from already, but is there anything else you would recommend to somebody who's interested in starting a coffee business in their community?
Yeah, I think something you got to keep in mind is, I think with coffee particularly, you've got to really actually love what we're doing and the aspects of it. It's not an extremely profitable business. Sure. Even if you've got all your costs down, your labor's tight, all this kind of stuff, it's really difficult to actually have a successful small business. Yeah. And in food and beverage, margins are slim. Coffee is definitely on the slimmer end. Sure. And especially if you're going to be doing stuff like we're doing, we're using very high quality and thusly expensive ingredients. Right. And so somebody might come in to our shop and it's more expensive here than somewhere else, but actually we're making less money than a place that has cheaper prices.
Probably a misconception for a lot of people, I think.
They have cheaper prices and are making more money than we are as a particular business. So actually loving and being personally invested in what your business is going to be with a coffee company, I think is one of the most important, like, foundational beginning places. And understanding that, as well as really doing your homework to make sure you're setting yourself up and your staff up for success. Our bar particularly, just the coffee side of the bar, we have a pretty small space here. Mm-hmm. We crank out a ton of food and a ton of drinks. and it's designed to be as small as it possibly can be while still remaining functional for what we need it to be, and planning the workflow of both people moving through your cafe and the way that your staff is going to be operating in that place makes it so much better. So keeping, like, first thing first is, if you're not really interested or passionate about this thing, it's probably, you should probably think twice about entering into it. Doing your homework to make sure both your cafe is going to be set up really well. Either if you're not super confident in doing that, hiring somebody to do that and help you form a really solid workflow and make sure everything is going to be set up well for your staff to succeed. They're gonna thank you for it.
Of course, yeah.
And you're gonna be able to actually produce more as a business if you set your staff up well. So it's beneficial on a lot of levels. Your guests are gonna be happier, your staff's gonna be happier, and ultimately your potential for like return on investment is gonna be higher if you're set up well for success at the beginning, because those things are hard to change after you're open. And then also doing your work on the back end and making sure that your numbers are set up well and you have a realistic idea of what things are actually going to cost, because you never want to be in a situation where you're going to go under and then all these people that are working for you are now out of jobs, so on and so forth, which is really easy to do in our industry, which is really unfortunate. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Well, those are really good insights. Kind of pivoting to the more barista side of things, do you find, how do you think one, or I guess what would your advice be to a younger barista as to how they balance really dialing in their staple drinks, just, lattes and cappuccinos and ristrettos and macchiatos and stuff, with coming up with, it's kind of, I see it more and more, the drink with a specific kind of syrup or with an orange peel or, the specific recipes. How do you balance those two kinds of concepts?
Like the basics and pushing the envelope kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think figuring out what the basics are is extremely important. You should know generally what's going on. People call a lot of different drinks a lot of different things.
Yep.
But as long as you can figure out how to work through and communicate what your guest actually wants, you're going to be able to make a drink that is going to make them happy, or at least set the expectation that maybe you can't do exactly that, but we can do something that I think you're going to be happy sitting with. Is really important. So having a firm grasp on those basics and knowing how to execute them well is extremely foundational. Being able to not only just know those drinks and like what the ratios are, so on and so forth, but being able to execute them well is really important. But also in that, figuring out what your basics are is also, again, going back to knowing your community and knowing the company that you're working for is really important, whether it's your own company and deciding that for yourself, or you're coming in and you're working for a company, knowing actually what you are there to do is really important, because coffee service here is going to look really different at a different cafe in a different community that has a different style of service and just what they're serving their guests as far as their product is concerned. And so having a firm grasp on that is super important. So it's almost like learning what the basics of your place of work is really important. And then pushing the envelope, it's like that stuff is really fun. And I think can really get baristas excited about what they're doing and feel a lot more belonging to a bigger thing. Yeah. A lot of times. And like I mentioned before, I really enjoy learning. And so for me, being able to just sit back and work through a problem and figure out how I could do this thing better, or how this might be able to be increased, so on and so forth, is really key to just general enjoyment of my job. Yeah. But ultimately, I think the amount of investment is deeply personal, of like whether you're going to try to push the envelope and learn how to do that, because ultimately we baristas are typically on the lower end of the wage
Sure.
on the wage scale.
Yeah.
And you can only expect so much investment for
course.
what folks are being paid, and understanding that for yourself, is it something that you love and you want to invest that time in? Then maybe take time to figure out pushing the envelope, so on and so forth.
Sure.
I personally happen to be in that realm where
Yeah.
I'm passionate about it. I care about this thing that we do.
Yeah.
I want to know more. But I think it's very understandable. And what's actually crucial is knowing your basics,
Yeah.
and knowing what you've got to serve, and being able to do that well is something that we can and should be able to expect. So I think coming into a job and knowing bare minimum, I need to have a very firm grasp of the things that we do and that we do here, and maybe general culture around coffee. As far as pushing the envelope, balancing that, I think that's a deeply personal choice.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's really insightful. Cool. Well, do you think that, well, changing the subject a little bit, if you could go to any coffee producing region in the world and sort of experience the coffee culture there and see it, where do you think you would go?
As far as coffee, that's slightly difficult. I think as far as
Sure.
like going and seeing coffee production is
Uh-huh.
concerned, I'd most want to go to Colombia.
Cool.
I think Colombia has the coolest range out of any coffee producing
Sure.
country. You've got really chill, comforting coffees, and then the absolute most ripping coffees
Yeah.
that you could possibly taste coming out of Colombia. And that like wide swath is really cool. I normally,
Absolutely.
at least present tense, if people ask me if I have to drink coffee from a single origin for the rest of my life, I'm choosing Colombia presently.
Definitely.
So
Well, kind of my last real pivot is one thing that seems like it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing in coffee is the competitive coffee scene,
Yeah.
the competitive coffee making scene, and barista competitions. What kind of experience do you have with that? What are your thoughts on that scene?
yeah, it's, even though it's been happening for decades now,
Sure,
it
yeah.
still feels fresh, and like we're moving to a point where we're pushing past probably a necessary barrier.
Yeah.
I think coffee competitions are really fun. I compete in ones that I like and respect and enjoy. They're not without issue. Like, they're not perfect, whether it be US Coffee Champs or like the World Latte Art Competition,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
open at Coffee Fest, so on and so forth. But they're special. They're really special places. They're a place to go if you're in the industry and you're interested, and you really are seeming like you're feeling like you might be catching a passion for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place to go where almost by default, all of the people that are going to be there are also going to be really passionate
Yeah.
about what you're doing, that care, that you can learn from, that you can connect and broaden kind of your scope of who you can talk to in the industry for your own professional development. And it's nice to make friends with people who care about the same thing that you do.
Well, is there anybody that I guess from a competitive perspective or professional perspective, did you ever have anybody that was like kind of in a mentoring role that helped you kind of develop? And is that something that you think is valuable to people to find in this industry?
I think so. Yeah. I think it can be a very valuable thing. And like, my original mentor in the scene is the person that owns this company, or
Sure.
co-owns the company, is Max Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely learned a ton from him. I think the biggest thing that Max did, that he did a really good job with me and tends to with people, is making sure that they know that they can do it and they can do it well, and that it instills a lot of confidence in somebody and is very empowering for
Yeah.
them to move forward and understand kind of their own potential. I think the biggest thing that Max instilled in me. Learned a ton from him, but ultimately I just felt pushed forward to kind of dive into this thing that I found myself becoming passionate about.
Well, my last question, because I have to ask everybody that I have a chance to talk to, is what is your personal favorite way to drink coffee? Or one of your personal favorites? I know it's hard to pick just one.
It is hard. I would have to say brewed coffee is my favorite. If I was literally forced to only have one style of coffee to drink for the rest of my life, I would go with brewed coffee.
Yeah.
It's how I prefer to start my day. It's what got me kind of hooked on being able to taste all kinds of different things and understand like the clarity of what I prefer a cup to taste like.
Sure.
I love espresso as well, but if I would prefer to drink brewed
I'm the
coffee
same way.
for every day of my life. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no
thank you
problem.
for all of your insight. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, drop comments, if you got questions, all that stuff, and get subscribed for more videos like this in the future. Thanks so much.